So, Tina Fey was right. Sarah Palin could see Russia from her house, or rather Putin's threat. She warned us way back in 2008 that if Barack Obama wins, his indecision and moral equivalence may spur Putin to invade Ukraine. She was mocked for it because, as you know, she talks funny and stuff. And who can forget the debate where Obama retrieved a lame joke to poke fun of Mitt for calling Russia a geo-foe threat.
Russia, I indicated, is a geopolitical foe. Not a, excuse me, it's a geopolitical foe. And I said in the same paragraph, I said, and Iran is the greatest national security threat we face. Russia does continue to battle us in the UN time and time again. I have clear eyes on this. I'm not going to wear rose-colored glasses when it comes to Russia or Mr. Putin.
In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because, you know, the Cold War has been over for 20 years.
Now, I tell the president to keep his day job, but that's the problem. He kept it. But there's nothing gained from screaming, "I told you so," to a giggling moronic media. In fact, it's a selfish act predicated on things going badly for America. We should want to be proven wrong because that means the country's okay. But there's a lesson in Palin's and Mitt's validation. If they were right then, what else were they right about? Let's dredge up that awful phrase, drill, baby, drill. Build Keystone, start pumping out tons of natural gas that undercut the price Russia charges for Europe, and we'll win the new Cold War the way we won the last one, by bankrupting Russia without firing a shot. We'll also kiss off the crazies in the Middle East while we're at it. If Obama doesn't feel compelled to take on Putin, maybe he might stand up to the far-left environmentalists in his own party, which makes me wonder, how do you stand up to yourself? Hey, I want to just play this because this is my favorite shot. This is John Kerry bashing Sarah Palin and Mitt Romney over their just short-sightedness with Russia.
He's even blurted out the preposterous notion that Russia is our #1 geopolitical foe. Folks, Sarah Palin said she could see Russia from Alaska. Mitt Romney talks like he's only seen Russia by watching Rocky IV.
Oh, my gosh.
So, Bob, that's disgusting. And Sarah Palin is a better Secretary of State than John Kerry.
Let's try to put this in some perspective. Back during that period, the Ukraine was always the centerpiece of the right's argument about how Russia was always going to be. That was going to be the first place they were going to go, Georgia and the Ukraine. I'm not surprised she said it. A lot of people were saying she was not alone. Having said that, I still wonder today, if this were today and Ronald Reagan were in office today, what would he do? Stand on the border of the Ukraine and say, "Go back home, Russia"? What would he do?
I don't know. To be fair,
I mean, we're interested in what our president can
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is there are limitations. We've talked about this. There's the EU that takes.
You wouldn't do it if Reagan was in power. Let's face it.
It's the mocking. It's the mocking from the left and the media, from someone from the right that had said anything about foreign policy. Interestingly, you never know what the issue is going to be. In the year 2000, neither Bush nor Gore ever was asked about Al-Qaeda by anybody in the media, not anybody at any of the debates. You never know what's going to happen. The Ukraine and Georgia, that was basically the signs were there. And the Bush administration will admit, on the Georgia, it missed a lot of the signs.
Yeah.
So why can't they just admit it and be gracious? They have to be so mean to her.
It is. It's very mean.
So, Bob, can I ask you, so you said a lot of people were saying, can you name some?
Oh, sure.
But I'm not putting you on the spot to actually name some people. But I will tell you who was made fun of. Sarah Palin and Mitt Romney were made fun of then.
And they were right.
And there's no apologies being issued right now by the left, these idiots on MSNBC who just trashed her after some of those interviews.
I think the answer,
they should be walking all that back saying, you know what, she may have said it, other people may have said it, but we trashed her.
I don't know about Mitt Romney, but I have some very serious questions about whether Sarah Palin really understood the geopolitical ramifications of what she was saying.
Oh, but see, now you're undermining it. You can't even be gracious to say that she got it right.
Thought about the Ukraine.
Did you hear her speech? Go back to her speech and listen to it. She outlines that Russians will move, and the likely target is Ukraine.
And the likely target when the Russians were going to move back to the last 15 years has been the Ukraine.
Well, can I bring Kimberly in this? My other issue here is the danger of embracing a messenger at the expense of the message. People liked Obama because he was cool.
Let's tally up the votes, who wins for prom king and queen. That's not what life is about. And as you see, then we became very ill-equipped and unprepared for a situation like this. And they can laugh and say all the stupid things they want about Mitt and about Sarah Palin. But you know what? At least they haven't been humiliated internationally and domestically. How many times by Russia? Whether it was about the Syrian conflict, whether it was about Snowden, the Ukraine, all of this look at the mess that we have to deal with right now.
There's also a very strange thing that happened yesterday on the Sunday shows with Secretary of State John Kerry talking to David Gregory on Meet the Press. And David Gregory asked him about the Russian reset and how that factors into all of this. And Kerry says, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's like, well, wait, the whole thing that you based President Obama's foreign policy on, and they just get a pass. Nobody's making fun of Secretary Kerry today.
No one follows up with a question.
You're right. That answer of his was absolutely ridiculous. Let me say this in defense of what Mitt Romney did and what Sarah Palin said. We have been so consumed with Islamic terrorists that we have not looked at the big geopolitical picture, which is Russia and China.
Correct.
I've been saying this about China for a long time. So if the Obama administration missed it, a lot of people missed it, that while we're focusing on these terrorists that I think we've over-focused on, in the meantime, we've left alone some of the big players in the world.
To be fair, I think you're right. I still believe terror is number one. I will always feel terror is number one. But I always thought Russia was a second-tier issue. I always felt that way because I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that the Russians were so much in love with the West, but I conflated Russia with Putin.
But the Russians have been very helpful to the United States when it comes to fighting radical Islamic terrorism, because they have the same problem in
Because it's in their own self-interest. Not
you can actually. Putin is the president of a sovereign nation. He should not be allowed to invade other sovereign nations. But when you're going to fight against when you're fighting an ideological war, you're going to have to work with people like Putin.
Yeah. Can I just point out the difference between China and Russia and the war on terror?
Yeah.
The national interest. Where is the threat to the national interest of Russia going into the Crimea region of Ukraine?
I think
there is very little to
the national security is the United States commitment to our European allies.
Yeah, but you have to see who has skin in the game.
That's
right.
We do have
But now talk about whether there's a national interest of Americans abroad who are being blown to smithereens in certain areas or being blown up here in America.